we dive into the good stuff, the tough questions, we got a couple.
My favorite.
Couple of rapid fires. So you are deep into movies, Hollywood. Tell me, what is number one, the most underrated film that is glorious, and what's the most overrated film that's terrible but everyone hypes up?
Okay, I'm going to say this. This is going to be an unpopular opinion, but a film that I think is actually terrible is Jurassic Park.
Really?
I'm sorry, it's a terrible film.
All of them?
No, I'm just going off the first one. I think the first one is a terrible film.
They got better?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
I just think that, like, look, don't get me wrong. Like a lot of people love Jurassic Park, and Jurassic Park as a concept, I mean, it's level 10 genius. It's based off a Michael Crichton novel. And make no mistake, I love a million Spielberg movies.
That's not one of them.
I just don't like Jurassic. It's not that I think it's a terrible movie. I shouldn't say that. I just think it's grossly overrated. The special effects at the time were I was alive during that time. They were so disproportionate. Here's what I think. The special effects were so disproportionately had never been seen before that people watched that movie and were like, whoa. Dinosaurs are real. And again, that's how it felt when you watched it. It was unbelievable. But as a movie critic and as a writer, director, and a person who's really into movies, there's a lot of problems with it. Like serious problems. I'll give you three. Just
let's hear
so
it.
Everyone understands. I have a case.
There you have a case.
I need receipts.
I want data.
I need receipts.
Evidence.
So here are my receipts. At some point, they talk about the okay. First of all, let me tell you the fundamental problem of the movie.
All right.
And again, just this is a fundamental problem. What is the first half of the movie about? The first half of the movie, literally half of the movie, is a debate between Sam Harris's character, the guy who created the park, Jeff Goldblum's character, and the Laura Dern character. And they basically go there, and you got one side of it's going, hey, bringing back dinosaurs is a bad idea. And then you got the guy going, no, it's a great idea. I've thought of everything. Everything's fine. There's no problem. And Jeff Goldblum's character is like the only one with any sense remotely. The other characters are, quite frankly, morons. Right?
No logic.
The character that created the park is so portrayed so dumb that there's no way he'd be as successful as he was, that ignorant and dumb. But my point being is, the half of the movie is a debate on could this go wrong or not.
You're right.
But there's a fundamental flaw in that debate. The audience already knows from literally the first scene with the velociraptors that things have already gone wrong.
So there's no tension, there's no intrigue. You're right.
For half the movie, the characters are debating something that the audience already knows.
You're
the audience is already ahead of the entire story. So for half the movie, the audience is going, yeah, we know.
I love the passion behind all of this.
It's like, I'm watching it and I'm like...
Yeah, it was just about the special effects,
it's
really.
Special effects.
Really just... I just remember being a kid and watching that scene where like the guy's in the porta potty and the porta potty gets taken up and he like eats the guy in the toilet.
Oh, yeah. I mean, there's some amazing... And there's some great dramatic work. I also think Sam Harris was horribly cast. I think he was not the right fit for the movie.
What about underrated?
I mean, there's so many I wouldn't even know where to begin on that one.
What's like the first one that popped in your mind?
Probably a movie called Heathers.
Heathers? Never seen it.
Lauren.
Really?
Lauren.
Okay, on my to-do list.
Oh my God.
Heathers, what's it about?
You cannot watch it without me. I gotta watch it.
Okay, I'm ready. I'm ready. Movie night tonight.
Okay, if you haven't seen Heathers, so Heathers is a movie made in 1986. It's Winona Ryder and Christian Slater. And it's
already off to a good start.
Literally, the entire movie is making fun of suicide in high school.
Oh, wait, it's a comedy.
It is a dark comedy.
Oh, I'm in.
It is.
I'm down.
Have you seen it?
No.
Rachel? It is.
I'm down.
I'm intrigued.
The movie is
dark comedy.
It has this vibe to it.
Okay,
and
I'm in.
Heathers.
Heathers.
Yeah.
I'm down.
Just everybody knows.
It's about three Heathers that run a school. Heather, by the way, as you
Heathers.
ladies probably know, was the cool name in the 80s. If you
yeah.
were a girl and you were named Heather for whatever
Yeah,
reason, you
you're
were
the cool
automatically
chick,
hot
yeah.
She's
and
a
automatically
Heather. Yeah.
popular. I don't know how it happened, but it
Yeah.
happened, right? And just like if you were a guy, your name was like Troy or Steve. You were
Ooh,
like the
yeah.
quarterback,
Oh, yeah.
right? I
Oh,
don't,
yeah.
Again, I don't know how that happened, but it happened.
So true.
And it's about 3 Heathers were like the beautiful girls that ran the school, the popular ones, and it's about
Okay.
it's
I want to watch it.
It is a
I've literally
flawless-
never heard of the movie.
It is a flawless film. There's
Wow.
not a single thing in it that is like
Okay.
that doesn't push the story forward. And the point that I'm making is what it says about society is just
Okay. Time for a movie night.
Yes, we should
Time
watch it. It's so
time
good,
for a
so
movie
good.
night. I'm down.
And there's a lot of underrated movies, a lot of overrated
Yeah.
movies, but
Okay. Good choices, though. Good choices.
I think it's really cool that you have the background in Hollywood film, but then also your background in Delta Force. Do you have any crazy stories or pranks that you guys used to do?
Any hazing?
Any hazing?
Well, hazing. Let me think about that. Hazing was not
Or just pranks?
Yeah, we were not as big as pranking.
Not
The
like the
SEALs
seals.
did
Not
quite
like
a
the
bit.
Yeah, not
seals.
even comparable to the SEALs.
Yeah, I
mean,
hear all the time with
So
the
what's
SEALs.
what's
That's why I'm always
the
curious.
worst one you've heard from the SEALs then?
Probably
Hazing.
the worst one I heard from SEALs was, I mean, I've heard a couple good ones, but probably the craziest one I heard was they went into a guy's team locker, basically, where his cage where all his stuff is, and I believe they put a boat in there and then inflated it like a full-size Zodiac.
What?
Yeah, like because it inflates, so they like brought it in there and then blew it up
Oh
to where
my
he
God.
came in his cage and there was like a boat inside his cage.
That's actually funny.
Yeah, I mean, it was,
That one's not too mean. That one's funny. I've heard some mean ones though. Next time you're with Mike Ritland, you'll have to ask him about
yeah,
some of
the
ones he has.
I'll tell you right now, I was not okay. All right, I'll tell you one.
All
but
right,
just
I'm
know-
ready for this
All right.
one.
Just
There was
know
a long
you guys asked
All
for
right,
this
we
one.
asked for it.
Oh, the audience wants it.
So
Or do they?
so
Or do
I
they?
I called them reindeer games, and I did not like playing reindeer games because when you start a prank war, like
Oh yeah.
yeah, sure, it may feel fun to like, oh, got you, but that's coming back, and it's like it's like any war. It's gonna escalate, and we did when I was a ranger. We were, I think, training in Fort Knox. I forget what year this was, 2000 something, and we were, I forget how it started. But it started relatively innocently, you know what I mean? Like, it started with there's something called chubbing.
Chubbing?
Chubbing. You know what this is.
Chubbing. I
Yes.
don't. Tell me.
You don't know what chubbing is?
No.
Okay. Chubbing is when you rub your thing on someone's thing.
Oh.
Not thing.
Why would I know what chubbing is?
Well, yeah, I mean, that's a good point. But she knew.
I knew.
So it's basically like if somebody's phone, you like take it and you rub your thing on their phone, right? And it started relatively, low yield. It was
Low
like,
yield. I like that.
It was low yield. Yeah,
Low
I just
yield
made that up.
chubbing.
It felt like it worked, but on like somebody's soap, and then so like somebody chubbed my soap, and then they took pictures of it after I had taken a shower with it,
then they
like
show
washed
you.
my face, and then they're like, "Hey, look at these pictures," and I was like, "Fuck." So, and it just kept going, and then ended up what happening was we did a 30-mile road march, and we ended up this guy named Peacock and Moore, and this guy Moore was in every military like platoon or squad. I don't know. There's always that one guy
Yeah.
that will just do what no one else will. You know what I mean? There's always that guy who just has no sense of like, right? You know, he just does the shit that you're like,
true
dude,
chaos addiction.
Yeah, you're like, that's not okay.
Like
right?
disproportionate to the situation.
He's that guy that will take it to a level that you're like, dude.
Whoa.
Right? Exactly.
Whoa.
And so we were, and again, it started and it was all kinds of shit. And we were, I mean, 30 Mile Road March takes, I forget how long, but it's hours.
Yeah.
It's like
A long time.
12, 14, 16 hours. I don't even remember. Actually, it's probably like 14 or 16 hours. So it was a long walk with a lot of weight. And it was like mile, 29, and we were stopping and drinking. And this guy Moore walked up to Peacock and was like, "Hey, Peacock, how does my dick taste?"
Oh.
And he's like,
oh.
"What?" He had chubbed his Camelback straw.
Oh.
That's
Whoa.
mean.
And waited till mile 29 to tell him that's low. Did anyone laugh or was it just like anger?
People laughed. I mean, Peacock was older. He was actually in the British military.
He's like, the guy took it too far.
So here's the revenge. So the revenge, and again, this is why I just was like, dude, I don't want any part of this stuff. Is we were I mean, and again, I think this ended the war from what I remember, but Moore would sleep with his, because we'd have to sleep in the day when we were doing stuff at night, and Moore would take his at the time was a Polypro cold weather top, and he'd put it over his face or over his over his face when he slept in the daytime so he could sleep. And freaking old Moore or old Peacock, I forget how Moore figured it out. Yeah, well, we go by last names.
Old Peacock.
And Peacock, I don't think I've ever met anyone with
it's a
the
cool last name.
Peacock. Yeah, he was British. And he basically, I remember Moore getting ready to sleep, and he laid down, and he was like, "It smells like shit."
Oh my God.
And we're like, dude, and he like comes up and he's like, "Dude, what? Did somebody shit in here?" We're like, "No, whatever." So then he like goes back to bed and he's like, "It fucking smells like shit." Peacock had taken his cold weather top and wiped his butt with it.
Oh, disgusting.
That ended the prank wars. That trip.
That's chubbing on another level.
But that's
again, so is that high yield? You said low yield. So
yeah,
that's high yield.
Yeah, that was when it escalated. But again, all of them escalate in the same way.
Once the body parts get too involved,
that's what I'm saying.
Over.
Like
I feel like this is such a male thing. I don't know if
in
any
their body
girl
parts. Girls are never. No.
I wouldn't rub my thing on one of your things to like prank you.
Oh goodness! It's
really a male thing.
No, and I mean
like a dominance,
and it's always going to get to in my
like
experience,
dogs peeing on things.
It's going to get to a point
literally like that.
Yeah, it's going to get to a point where it's gross. He's like, I get that.
Yeah.
But it's always going to get to a point where it's gross,
disgusting.
And that's why I'm just like, it's like a Fairly Brothers movie. I'm out. I'm out.
Yeah.
Look, I get it. You are burnt out with today's healthcare systems and options that are being offered. Maybe you've gone the conventional medicine route and you've gotten basic lab testing done and everything came back as normal, but you still felt like something was truly wrong in your body and you still struggle to get better. This is why I'm so passionate about what we do at Rachel Shear Nutrition. We are not like a lot of the other functional medicine practices that are out there. We are not a one-size-fits-all program. The system that we developed was actually what I wish that I had when I was struggling with my own health issues, when I was on 5+ medications and I was being told that I needed to have my entire large intestine removed. I saw firsthand what it truly takes to heal. And it's not just extensive labs. Yes, those are important, but truly identifying why we have these problems in the first place, which means we want to get to know you. We want to get to know your lifestyle, your diet, your trauma history, the things that you walked through. We also bring in something called psychophysiology, which is the mind-body connection. And this is what it really means to have a holistic approach when it comes to healing. So if you're sick and tired of the conventional what approach without truly healing, and you're sick and tired of working with functional practitioners or just giving you cookie cutter plans, and you want to learn more about the RSN approach, you can book a free call by visiting rachelshear.com.
So will you, just for the audience, give a little background on your military career and kind of explain it? And then I'd like to take us to kind of a pivotal moment. I have the benefit of knowing your story because I did co-author a book with you.
You probably know my story better than I do.
We
at
know
this
it.
point.
We know it pretty
Yeah.
well. So I'd just love for you to give a little background, and then let's go ahead to 2005 and kind of talk
Yeah,
about that
well,
pivotal night.
I'll give you just a real quick, and again, you know this, but I feel like it should be said. As a kid, as you know, I always just was wanting to be in the military. I wore camouflage every day. I mean, I was that kid, which used to be portrayed a lot in 80s movies, by the way. Like the little wannabe military kid was a very common character. It went away, but I was that kid. And so I joined the military. I was a ranger. I was a ranger sniper for, I don't know, 4.5-ish years. I deployed as a sniper team leader to Afghanistan, or my initial trip to Afghanistan. And then I went to, when I got back from that, worked with another counterterrorism unit over there. That was a great experience. So I was like, that's what I want to do. So I got back from that trip, put in a packet, went to that selection, and then went to, a what's called a tier 1 counterterrorism unit in the Army. And it was the pinnacle of it was what I wanted. I shouldn't even say it was what I wanted to do. It was what I felt like I was made for. And our specialty in that unit was close quarter combat, or CQB, which is nickname, I guess, which is just, hostage rescue is a very, very, very chaotic. I mean, you're coming into a room. If you could imagine this is a huge room, but just take a small room, or not a small room, it's still a big room. But if you, cordon this room off in half, and imagine coming into a room where there's 4 bad guys and 3 good guys, and you have to shoot the bad guys, not shoot the good guys, and it's a very, very, very chaotic environment. And so I felt I was good in it. I knew how to do it. It was just something that I could do. I don't know how else to say it. So I was very much at that time. I mean, it's who I was. You know what I mean? It was the one time that I felt like I was doing something that I was truly built for lack of a better term. And again, you see, and I want to be very clear. I'm not saying it's not a badass thing. It's just something you can do or you can't.
Yeah.
And I don't know how else to explain it other than
there's something instinctual about it too.
I think so. Here's what I think it is. And again, I've seen super badass. I'll give an example. I've seen really tough, badass dudes that are just like gods to me not be able to do that. And what I mean by that is it has nothing, again, the badass part of it has nothing to do with anything. It's their brains are either able to process that chaos and be comfortable in that chaos, or they can't. And it really is completely separate from your willpower and your choice.
Well, it makes sense too with how the nervous system works.
100%.
Because we don't get to choose the nervous system. It's an autonomic response. So whether we go into fight, flight, or freeze, a lot of people have an idea of how they think they would respond, how they would like to respond. They're like, oh yeah, if that would happen, I would show up, I would fight back. But when in reality, when there's chaos, your nervous system responds and you don't actually get to choose. So it's really interesting, and it's very much rooted in science too.
100%. But to your point, I actually just taught a class 3 weeks ago, and I explain it this way now. Because what are the nervous system responses? Fight, flight, freeze. Some people say fawn. There's, which fawn's a horrible name. It's just has an F, so they chose it, which is bullshit, but whatever. But what's interesting is one of them is fight. It's usually the first one people say. So there's an interesting thing about the fight response in an autonomic nervous response, which is people think that to fight in that, let's say somebody came in with a gun right now.
Yeah.
What's interesting is people would say, okay, to fight that, your autonomic nervous system kicks in and puts you in fight mode. What I'm saying is, to do the job that I was talking about, you have to learn to fight, not in fight mode.
So what you're saying is you're actually maintaining a level of safety and calm in the midst of the chaos where
Correct.
the average person may go into fight, but their whole nervous system is upregulated still regardless. So they're in that yellow zone, or maybe in different scenarios, they go to completely red and they go to shutdown. But actually, they're in this calm state in the midst of chaos, almost like there's a safety there.
If you think about it this way, let's say a black belt. And again, no one equates it this way, but the science will prove this at some point. If you look at a black belt that's an MMA fighter, let's just say, and that black belt or that MMA fighter gets into a street fight, his ANS is not going to activate.
Right. Mm-hmm.
He is going to be thinking completely rationally and logically. Now, a person that's in fight mode but with an activated autonomic nervous system, they are not going to be able to consciously make decisions in that fight.
Prefrontal cortex isn't engaged.
Here's a question, though, that I have. Is it that the person, let's say warriors like you, are operating in this green parasympathetic state and that they don't get raised in the midst of chaos? Or is it that they're already operating most of the time in more of this upregulated internal place of chaos, so that just feels normal to them?
I mean, it's a good question. I would, based on how I feel, generally when something happens, I get very, like I came upon a wreck. I don't know. Almost, I sent you that picture. A car almost went off the side of a mountain. This is like 4 weeks ago. And I drove upon it. And as soon as I saw it, things for me get very clear and calm. And I just feel very...
You experience focus?
Very focused, yeah.
So you're like prioritizing.
Yeah, I'll immediately and it's almost like I go into a channel of it's just like I go into a flow of actions that I just know that I need to do. So where I'm going with that is I personally feel like when the environment is calm, there's a level of internal chaos. When the environment is chaotic, there's internal calm. So personally, I think that the more chaotic something gets, the more clear things feel, and the more I feel like this is my jam.
Super fascinating with what you're saying, and it makes complete sense, because if this more, I don't even want to use the word upregulated, because to you it doesn't feel like an upregulation, but let's just say more of like this sympathetic state, which is more of a move energy kind of go state, not this like restful kind of like peaceful meditative state. But let's just say that's the state that you've been used to operating in for most of your life. Maybe that's based off of your upbringing or trauma, and you grew up maybe a bit in some chaos. But that's been most of the default setting for your entire life. It makes sense, though, as to when you're in that, it feels the most at home. It actually feels, in a backwards way, the most safe to you and your body. And you feel like, oh, I'm here, I'm home, which is, I know some things we'll get into, which is where finding relationships that are a bit more chaotic and trauma bonding and things like that can happen. And I know you talk a lot about the addiction to chaos, but it's the body being so used to operating in this yellow state that actually feels like what it is to be safe.
I mean, you nailed it. Really, I'll say. I mean, you said it. I'm going to just say it differently, but it's the same thing, and that is, chaos becomes your homeostasis.
Wow.
It's not necessarily that it is safe, but to me, the way I explain it is, if you grow up in chaos, chaos is normal,
Yeah.
and your body
yeah.
makes the default what it experiences most of the time.
Oh, I just got
So
chills. Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it goes, this is the world.
It's normal. Yeah.
This
And
is the world.
then you
This
adapt
is
to
what
it.
it is. And then it goes, well, I'm going to rewire you to be okay in that world because that's what this world is. And what's crazy about chaos addiction or everything we're talking about is your body is rewiring you to be able to function and survive in that chaotic environment. And it works for that time period of your childhood or whatever it is. It just unfortunately sets you up for a lot of problems later on. But as a early survival mechanism, it works. But I have a theory on that too. I'm big into evolutionary psychology. I think if you look at how nature works, and again, take religion out of it, just demonstratably what we can all obviously observe, and I think all agree on, is we're only truly designed to get to an age where we can have children. I don't think nature cares after that.
Huh.
Once you have
Interesting.
children, so it's like, I will do any, and I mean, if you go back, 500 years, everyone was having kids in their teens.
Yeah.
So I
Life
think,
expectancy was pretty low.
and life expectancy
30s,
was
40s.
in your 30s and 40s, the further you go back. So I think a lot of the things we're seeing now, just like the problem with warriors, you and I didn't talk a ton about this, but we talked about it. I think one of the fundamental problems with warriors is we're outliving our purpose.
Interesting.
I don't think we were ever designed to
Right.
live into our 40s. As a warrior, I wasn't designed to live this long.
Very interesting.
500 years ago, I'd be running on a freaking field with a battle axe. Somebody would, hit my arm. This would have gotten infected and killed me.
Yeah, it's true though.
So I would have been dead. I would have never had to experience a life without the purpose of being a warrior. So when people look at PTSD and all these different things, I think it's actually way more simple. I think we're just simply, we're outliving, we're surviving the battlefield. People didn't used to survive the
right.
battlefield. In the Civil War, that's
Oh.
not that long ago. In the Civil
Yeah.
War, if you got shot at all,
Over.
you were dead. I don't care if you got shot in the arm. It would go.
Well, the casualties were off the charts.
Oh,
Like, just
off
look
the
at the
charts.
Civil War.
Yeah,
You're
Civil
thinking,
War.
like,
And again, that's
absurd.
not, it's not the 1800s. So
That whole
late
style of
1800s.
warfare was also interesting to me. Like, line up, they go shake the hand. The guy
I think
does the
war
drum,
is
and then
it's funny you say it because I think war is way more ruthless now.
So, Lauren, I'm so excited to have you a part of Rachel Shear Nutrition, but what are some of the reasons why you wanted to join the Rachel Shear Nutrition team?
when I looked at the projections of where functional medicine is expected to go over the next few years, I mean, it's going to skyrocket, as well as telemedicine. So when I got to see, hey, this is an opportunity not just to be on the forefront of a conversation about the paradigm of healthcare changing in our nation today, but also a movement to equip those leaders who will lead the way. I mean, that's an incredibly exciting thing. So I'm excited to see what's ahead because, I mean, honestly, we're just getting
I
started.
know, we're just getting started,
Yeah.
and it's so exciting to see how functional nutrition and functional medicine truly is the healthcare of the future. And I am so excited to see the amount of health coaches and dietitians, nurse practitioners, and nurses who are wanting to get into this field, who are wanting to truly really make an impact. They're sick and tired of having only 15 minutes with clients who really don't actually want their advice, and to be able to also create the freedom that they truly want in their life as well, to create the impact and the income. So if you guys are listening to this and you want to learn more about how you can get in on functional nutrition and become certified with your background as a health coach or a practitioner, you can head over to rachelscheer.com/certification and you can learn more about our certification process.
Big things ahead.
Big things ahead.
Yeah.
Way more ruthless.
It was kind of this like idea of the gentleman's way of doing it.
Back then, I had to see you to shoot you.
Yeah.
Back then, I had to be like, that dude.
There he is.
That guy. Same thing with swords. People are like, oh, that's crazy. It's not crazy at all.
Yeah.
I mean, I had to be in a close enough distance that I could hit you with the freaking sword or an axe or whatever. Even an arrow, people didn't shoot arrows that far back then. Nowadays, just in my time, let alone drones now. I mean, war, you got a 18-year-old kid sitting in a room wearing FPV drone goggles and just flying a drone and then going up to somebody and blowing them up.
That part's kind of scary, the dehumanization.
Well, you've taken away the personal connection to killing.
Yeah.
And that's scary.
That part is scary because you could just, So when you say I felt like I was built for this, I love that line that you said. Now you're saying in many ways, it's not just that you played, when you've had your first deployment as Delta Force. It wasn't just that, hey, this is what I used to play as a kid. It's also that your nervous system, which we now know, everything felt at home in that zone. So what would be a typical day for you? Like how would things go? Like you're deployed. What does that look like?
Back then, I'll just use a deployment, I would generally wait. At that time, we were doing everything at night. So we weren't even operating in the day. So I would generally, if I remember correctly, I'd wake up around 3 p.m., I think. I was a breacher, so I'd have to wake up at 3. I'd go eat breakfast.
Will you explain what a breacher is?
I was responsible for making entry into the structure. So blowing up the door, picking the lock. However we got in. I was responsible for getting us in, which generally we would try and explosively breach in Iraq. So you'd put explosives on the door or whatever it was and blow it up, and that would start the raid. But so I should also say, at that level of job, you're not driving around Iraq, patrolling. You're doing, very definitive raids, looking for very specific people. We know who we're going after every night. We're, which I guess I'll get to that. But yeah, I'd wake up. I want to say around 3. I'd usually do cardio, then eat breakfast, or eat breakfast, then work out, depending. Then I'd have to build charges, which they probably don't even do anymore. They're probably already pre-built, but everything was built by hand.
Wow.
So I'd build charges, and then generally, like I said, I'd usually do cardio and then work out maybe around like 7 p.m. After prepping all my gear and everything. And then usually for, 3 hours or so, I'd play Xbox with the team or read a book or, just hang out, you're just waiting for a mission, really. And we'd have to do a rotation in the talk and watch ISR feeds and stuff like that. But, there was a good amount of downtime. It's kind of, I assume, not that I've ever done this job, but I assume it's like working at a fire station.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You're like sitting around waiting for a fire,
for
right?
the action.
Or, any call. And sometimes we did have missions called TSTs, which were time-sensitive targets, where you'd be sitting there playing Xbox and they would freaking, ring a bell and you would put on your shit, run to the helicopter and go and
so they're briefing you nightly on what the mission is.
Every night, yeah, every night. So generally that would happen from what I remember around, I want to say 10 p.m.
Kind of like the movies where you go in, they've got some
photos. It is and it isn't.
Here's the target.
It's much lower tech than that, but the data doesn't really matter. Like we'd go in there and look at like you look at like a satellite imagery or an ISR feed, or it's just like, okay, it's a building. I really generally when you're briefing on this stuff, you're just kind of like, whatever, I don't care. Like it's not that important. But they would give you all the information, who it was, why we were going there, what they were doing, blah 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 blah. And I'll tell you this because I thought of this. You know me well enough to know I thought of this every freaking night. I'd be sitting there. Generally, you'd have everyone that was a part of the mission. I shouldn't say everyone. You'd have maybe 40 to 50-ish people in that briefing. All the pilots for the helicopters, our whole assault team. You'd have like some of the leaders of the support units, the officers. So it'd be like 50 people. And every single night, I would have the same thought.
What?
We're sitting here, 50 people, with a guy's picture on the freaking thing. He's probably having dinner right now, getting ready to lay down. Yeah. And little does he know, 50 fucking dudes are planning his.
You are the person of interest for tonight.
I have your house. You know what I mean? It would always just blow my mind. Little does he know that in about 3 hours, he's going to have 50 commandos
just like, what's
blowing up his door and running in his house. It was always just so
interesting,
surreal to me that, little does he know, And then that was like at like 10:30. Usually we'd leave around. It would depend on how long it would take to get to the target. So it could be 10 minutes on a helicopter. It could be freaking an hour and a half. You never know. So generally we'd leave around, I think we'd try and be there around 1 a.m., something like that. And then, you'd get however we got there. Generally I was on a team that generally came in on the roof. Which was awesome because I usually came in on the helicopter, which is by far the more fun part. By far the more fun way to go.
Stuff.
Yeah. I mean, coming on a helicopter is just awesome, especially in Iraq because you could. Iraq, all the houses have flat roofs. They would actually sleep on the houses in the summer, and they all have these little cupolas.
Do you ever surprise anyone who's like sleeping up there?
Oh yeah, many times. I'll tell you my favorites. This is my favorite.
Just imagining
story.
Waking up and someone's fast rubbing down a helicopter.
There's quite a few stories on because you'd land on the roof in the summertime. They'd be up there sleeping and you'd come in. But probably my favorite story because this is just so. It's just so surreal. So I remember landing on a roof. I don't remember how we got in. I just remember. I'll never forget this. I can see it clear as day. I remember coming in this cupola from the, it's like the stairway from the roof. I remember, I don't know how we caught him. Maybe I don't know exactly what happened, but I remember coming in and this guy, I just saw him leave his bed. Like as I came in the room, he was like where that door is. And I remember coming through the door, seeing him jet around to left of me. I remember going around like a dresser and a TV, and I remember catching the TV out of the corner of my eye. It was like at the foot of his bed, right across on the wall, and I remember catching. And I need to go through, but he has so many movies it would take time. But anyways, on the freaking screen is a scene of Samuel L. Jackson.
What?
Chasing a terrorist
around
almost the exact same. And I just remember like seeing it and I remember thinking, that's ironic.
Yeah, it's very ironic, the timing.
Yeah, I don't know what movie it was because he's been in so many damn movies I'd have to really go through. But I just remember like running after him, seeing that in the corner of my eye and being like sweet irony. And again, like little did he know watching that movie 10 minutes prior, we're going to be coming and knocking down his door. I thought that was funny, but it was.
You're in your zone. You're feeling like this is what you're meant to do.
Yeah.
And then one night, everything kind of abruptly decides to take a turn.
I'll say it. That's who I thought I was until I was no longer that, and then I had to figure out who I was without that.
What was that moment?
Only to realize I was never that.
Ooh, plot twist.
So on, and it's worth noting, at this time, you're, and again, this, I'm saying this only to give some level of understanding, but being in that place in the military, you're kind of a, you're I don't want to say celebrity, but
We can do the Anchorman, like, I'm kind of a big deal.
I'm kind of a big deal. Yeah. No, I mean, like, like it's just like if you're in the CIA.
Yeah.
People are like, oh, that person's in the CIA. It's like
Yeah.
there's some level of intrigue there. So,
Definitely.
it's hard not to have a lot of confidence, and it's hard not to feel like, I mean, you're doing a job that is pretty cool. Like,
Women want you, guys want to be you. I mean, it's the age old.
I mean, I couldn't have been more happy with myself, if that makes sense. I was doing what I wanted to do. And by the way, it's worth mentioning, I don't think I've even told you this.
Ooh.
Like, it wasn't relevant to the book, but it's kind of relevant now. Like, when I went to selection to go there, the class before me, I don't know, it's crazy. I don't think I ever told you this. Class before me was, I want to say 6, maybe it was 5, I don't remember. But it was like 5 or 6 of our baddest dudes, like strongest,
You
just
did tell me this.
freak. I did tell you,
Yeah.
It was just studs. Like, we sent 5 or 6 studs, and guys that were all in better than me physically, right? And not that that's necessarily the the only thing, but they were just fucking bad dudes, and none of them made it. And so then I was going to the next class, and everyone was like, dude, those dudes didn't make it. Pull your packet. You ain't the guy. Like, I'm sorry, but those dudes didn't make it. You're not going to make it, And it's just funny because, like, with all the things that I struggled with confidence in, that wasn't one of them. I just was like, I was
like it's who you were.
It was the one thing that I knew that I could do.
Yeah.
And I shouldn't say I knew I could do it. I just didn't doubt myself.
Yeah.
And they were like, it ain't going to happen. And I was like, those guys have nothing to do with me.
Yeah.
Yes, they are physically all probably better than me, no doubt about it. But I got to give it my shot. Like, it has nothing to do with me. I'm still going to go give it 100%, and we'll see what happens.
It almost sounds like a lot of these guys, as they're trying, they want to be, and there's a level they're trying to get to where you're just like, okay, this is just in me, and I'm just showing up as myself. And it wasn't even something you had to think about a whole lot.
I've never thought of it that way. But I think there's a lot of truth to that. I'll say this about that course. That course, you are mostly by yourself, walking extreme distances in the middle of nowhere. And I mean nowhere. And you're on your own, just walking by yourself. It's not a team event. It's an individual event, and you're just out there walking. And what gets most people is, understandably, is themselves, is their own judging themselves.
I'm sure second guessing too.
They're
Second
being
guessing.
in their head.
It's a cancer. It's a cancer of the brain there. It's really ingenious. Like, again, it was based on the SAS's selection process, which, again, I don't even know who made up that. I think that goes back to World War II. But whoever structured that, he's snoring. Whoever structured that course, it's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
What do you think helped you do so well? It sounds like it was almost intuitive.
I'll tell you a story. And I'm pretty sure I told Lauren this story. There was a day where we were walking, and we were, I forget how many miles it was, but I started at point A, and then I walked to point B. Let's say it was 5 miles. I don't remember. And I got to point B, and then they're like, all right, you have to go here now. And it was in a similar direction that I came. And then they're like, all right, you're here. Now you have to go here. And it was in a similar direction. It was basically walking almost in circles, for lack of a better term. And I happened to hear somebody, you know, when I was waiting to explain where I was and everything, I happened to hear somebody like kind of freaking out that I had just come from there, you know what I mean? And they were going crazy. And I was in my head, I was like, I'll go wherever you tell me.
Interesting.
I don't care. There is no, it doesn't matter. You know what I mean? It doesn't matter where you tell me to go. In fact, if you tell me to go somewhere I've already been, great. I know how to get there. It's even easier for me. And it just, again, it's like, I'll tell you the word or the specific word to what you said. I think what gets most people is expectation.
Ooh.
Expectation is a cancer of the mind.
Wow.
Because
Well said.
they have an expectation of what something's going to... Actually, I'll tell you an even better story. You know this one, but this is a great story. I'll never forget this for as long as I live. We might have cut it from the book, by the way. Did we cut we did cut the truck story getting off the truck.
We did.
Okay,
that's the one we
perfect.
wanted to add.
Yes, we wanted to put it.
Feature.
It's a great story. Yeah, so I'll tell it here because we cut it from the book. So there was a day where you could have a radio, and a couple people had radios, and you could hear the weather, and it was like literally blizzard conditions tonight, like severe blizzard, whiteout warning. And I think in the morning, the schedule, they would just write the schedule, and you would just, you know, you would only know what was happening an hour ahead of time or whatever it was. And they're like, you know, land nav. So we did day land nav, and then we got back from that. And in the military, there's just a rhythm. If you do day land nav, you're doing night land nav that night.
Well, explain what land nav is.
Oh, sorry. Land navigation. Yeah. So map and compass, walking through the woods to unknown points, right? Land navigation, you know, there's no GPS. It's all map and compass, and you're going, you know, unknown distances to unknown points, etc. If you do day land nav in the military, you're doing night land nav that night. It's just
how it goes.
The way it works, right? So I just remember the chatter starting right when we got back from day land nav. It was like, oh, we're not going to do night land nav tonight. There's a blizzard, you know, and they just started running their mouths about, oh, we're not going to go out tonight, blah, blah, blah. Expectation. Yeah. And then it was like, oh, you know, I think we might go out for a short, no. And then you have people that are like instructors in military. Oh, I know the rules of the of putting students out in the it's going to be too cold. You know, it's like all these just conversations. And I remember
it's like confirmation bias at that point too.
Yeah,
probably.
yeah. And I remember just thinking, like, I don't care. If we go, we go. If I don't care either way. I'm here to do something. It's like I don't even know why you guys are having a conversation. What does it matter? And it was just in my head. But I just listened, and then what happened was, I don't know, maybe 6 p.m. I forget. We go to dinner, and then it's like, be ready at 7:30. Again, I forget. Be ready at 7:30. Rucks, blah blah blah. Then the chatter starts again.
Oh yeah.
Oh, they're just putting that on there to see who quits, because they're not going to send us out there. There's no way they can do it. They're going to line us up there, and they're going to see who doesn't show up, and blah 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 blah. Again, I'm like, I don't care. And 7:30 comes around, we all get up there, and what's even crazier is it got more, the rumors, I guess, it got more intense. And I mean, it got in my opinion, it got a little ridiculous. And here's where it got a little ridiculous. We're sitting out there 7:30, and you see the vehicles come to pick us up. So again, there was people that were like, oh, they're just going to put us information. They're not going to pick us up. They're going to see who shows up. Then we see the vehicles. Then they're like, oh, the vehicles are just going to pull up, and then they're going to drive. It just
human nature.
Did I hear that?
What's that?
I hear with you, I'm not going to speak for them, but I hear with you, there wasn't a whole lot of fear, right? So it's like, whether I go, whether I don't, I'm here. Like, you were just in it. And
I was committed to whatever.
Yeah.
I had no I didn't care.
Yeah.
You're right. I mean, it wasn't. I don't want to say, oh, I didn't have fear. It's like I truly didn't care.
Yeah.
Nothing meant. I was there to do whatever they told me to do. I was going to do. I had no expectation. I had no. I was present. I was never
That was
thinking
what I
about the
thought.
past,
Word.
and I was never thinking about the future there, which, by the way, I am horrible at, as she knows. I don't know why I was good at it there, but I just truly was
You were so in your
present.
element.
Yeah, maybe I was just so comfortable. But what's crazy? So they and I remember thinking when they started going, oh, they're messing with us. Now, at that point, I don't know how many weeks we'd been there, but at that point, that's when I was like, all right, this is ridiculous. They have never messed with us at any point, even this much. So if they say we're going to do something, which I did actually think of earlier, I'm like, if they say we're going to do something, we're going to do it. Yeah, and again, it wasn't an expectation. I was just like, that's illogical. They've never messed with us. If they're putting something out there, we're doing it. So I had this expectation. I guess I technically did have an expectation that I was like, oh, we're going to Atlanta. I'm like, they don't give a fuck. You know what I mean? And so anyways, the vehicle's pulled up and freaking everyone gets on board. And it's already starting to like snow at this point. Or maybe it hadn't snowed yet, but it had definitely gotten bad. And we get on the trucks. We drive for like, I don't know, a long time, like an hour and a half, I don't know, maybe 2 hours. It was a long drive. And we knew that it had started snowing. You could just feel it on the outside of the thing. We get to this location. Again, it's been like 2 hours. They open up the back of the truck. And I mean, the snow is like sideways.
Oh.
Like I've never seen, maybe once, actually one time in my life later, I saw snow like this. But I mean, it was coming like at a, 50-degree angle, just crazy. And I just happened to be in the far back closest to the gate. And I'll never forget, I saw the snow and I got out and I walked up and I stopped and I was on the truck with, I want to say 6 or 7 guys. I don't remember. And I stood there and I was standing there for probably a minute. And the guy came up to me and I don't remember what he said, like, move or something like that. And I looked behind me and no one else had gotten off the truck. They had all, oh, sorry, I'm missing a major part of the story. For that 2-hour drive,
Shatter.
it was the exact same chatter. Oh,
Wow.
we're just going to, and again, it's the same thing. We're going to get there. They're
Wow.
going to see who wants to quit. Once we get there, they're literally driving us around for 2 hours in circles, and then we're going to be back at the barracks. And again, the whole time I'm just going, no, dude, we're doing Nightland.
So many life lessons there.
Yeah, and
So
then
many.
I remember looking back and literally
Only one.
the truck had drove off with 6 or whatever people inside, and I was the
Oh,
only
they didn't
one.
even get off. And they drove.
They didn't even
Oh,
get out of
wow.
the truck. As soon as they
And
saw
what does that mean for them when they?
well, they quit.
Yeah.
They
Oh,
all
they
quit.
quit.
the end,
Then
yeah.
They're
Oh, yeah.
in that moment. Wow.
Yeah, they all quit. They didn't get off the
Wow.
truck. My whole truck didn't get off the truck.
Yeah.
And that night was bananas. I mean,
Yeah.
it was crazy. My uniform, my Gore-Tex that I had on froze.
Damn.
My clothes froze.
Oof.
I don't think it had ever happened before that, but
Wow.
yeah, my actual Gore-Tex had froze, and by far the best Nightland I've ever done. By the way.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was.
By best.
Yeah, but it was. I mean, here's the other thing, and again, not to sound. I'm trying not to sound cool, but like, that was a fun night.
Yeah.
Like, I had a great
So you're in
time.
your element. You're doing what you.
I liked it. I liked it.
It's obvious it's been just like engraved in you your entire life with everything that you've shared here. I'm curious to dive a little bit deeper into what we were talking about earlier, the addiction to chaos.
Yes.
And when that really became apparent for you, because I can imagine, as you're sharing all of these stories, this is just normal for you. You're in it. But there was this moment where you were like, oh, wow, I actually think there's an addiction here to chaos. So when did everything really shift and change for you?
Yeah, I mean, I mean, I'll first I want to say you're 100% correct.
Yeah.
When you were raised in chaos and you were used to it, like now it's easy for me in hindsight to go, oh, addicted to
Sure.
chaos.
You
But
don't see it
yes,
then.
for years and years
Yeah.
and years and years, I had no idea. So it wasn't until um 2000 well, so
Yeah,
I'll
I feel
jump
like
I'll
we're missing it.
yeah, but I'll just jump it really quickly because I think this is the important part. But so I got on a mission in Solder City. I got blown up, and I got pretty severely, lost a good part of my right arm. Um, that put me out of the military, so I'm medically retired, and then I started working as a bodyguard for in LA and Vegas and well, really kind of all over.
How did
But
you feel at this point, though, like coming out of everything you were in?
lost.
You lost?
Yeah, lost. The
Because you were at this
best
high, at this confident
yeah,
point of what you're
invincible.
sharing, and then now,
the best way I
Yeah.
could describe it, I think there's a huge mistake that people make in the military, and that is what I hear often is when you get out, you experience a loss of identity. I don't actually think that's true. I don't think that you are losing your identity when you got out of the military. I mean, you are, but I think there's a more fundamental problem, which is I think most people that experience that never had an identity to begin with.
Mm.
Yeah.
And so they think they did, but it's really not them. It's the identity that the military gave them.
Mm.
Because make no mistake, the military gives you an identity. In fact, if you look at the basic training process, it is literally designed to break your identity and give you a new one. That's the process, right? And it's going, you're no longer, I mean, look at the Marine Corps.
Yeah, I was
You're
going to say, especially if you're a Marine.
You're no longer you. You're now a Marine. Like, it's like, hey, your old self, gone. You're now this. You'll always be this. You'll always be a Marine.
gave me chills.
And I understand why they do that for the job.
Sure.
I get it. I've done that job. I get it. The problem is when you've taken people who are searching for an identity, and make no mistake, when you join the military, again, people can talk, oh, I did it for the country. Bullshit. You did it for yourself. People don't do things solely for other people. People don't do things solely for the country. If you say that you did it for the country, you did it because you wanted to serve the country and there was something in you. Maybe you were missing an identity, you were missing purpose. So you wanted to serve the country, but that's for you to serve your purpose. You didn't do it for other people. And again, I'll take a Pepsi challenge to anyone that disagrees with that. No one does things solely for other people. It's illogical. We do things for ourselves, just the way the world works. Not taking away, it's an ancillary benefit, don't get me wrong, but there's got to be something a little bit more personal than just, for the world, right? And so, I very much experienced a massive, I was lost. I had a massive loss of identity. And again, at the time, I thought that I had just lost my identity. And now, of course, years going back, I'm like, dude, I never had one. I joined the military searching for an identity. They gave me one, and then they took that one away. So then I was double lost. But so I started working as a bodyguard, and there was a night, I don't remember what the event was. I feel like it was like maybe a Grammy award party. I forget. And I think it was that night, but I could be wrong. And I was driving back. This is in LA on Sunset Boulevard. I was driving back at like, I don't know, 2 a.m. It was probably like 2:30 because I had to, end this event and drive the client to the hotel or whatever. So I was driving back on Sunset Boulevard and I was really tired. And I remember all of a sudden, it was relatively empty. And then all of a sudden, there was like all these sirens, and there was a fire truck driving straight at me in my lane, which I was like, what the fuck is this guy
That's
doing?
disturbing.
Right? What's that?
Now you're wide awake.
Yeah, I'm like, whoa, you know. And I think I from what I remember, I was like the only car on the road other than these fire trucks.
2:30.
And yeah, on Sunset, which is pretty dead by it might have been 3 too. I don't remember. And so then I was like, oh shit. And so I pulled over, and then they kept driving towards me, and they ended up pulling. It wasn't that close, but it wasn't that far away. It was maybe at the trees over there. And I looked over, and I might have looked over before they stopped. I don't remember. But where I happened to pull, I looked over, and I could see a fire in a restaurant. I could see the door. It was like a glass door. I don't remember if the fire was out of a window, out of the door. I don't remember. And I remember seeing the fire, and I remember thinking, oh shit, like a fire. You don't generally see an actual structure fire. So I remember thinking, wow, an actual fire, fire trucks, whatever. And then, oh shit, an actual fire. The next thing I remember, there was like a 150-yard parking lot from the curb where I was at to the restaurant-ish, maybe 200 yards. Next thing I remember, I was running through the parking lot. I was out of my truck. I was running in the parking lot towards this fire. And I remember looking over to my left and seeing a firefighter. There was, I don't know, maybe 2 or 3. I don't remember. And I remember the firefighter was looking at me, and just in a way that made me pause, for lack of a better term. He was kind of like, I don't know. I can't even do it. I don't remember how he was looking at me. I just remember thinking, whatever his look was, it made me go conscious again instead of subconscious. And suddenly I realized that I was running towards this fire.
Wow.
And then I was like, what the fuck am I doing? I'm not a firefighter. I'm not part of this group. Like, what am I doing? And I stopped, and the firefighters kept going. And I felt so, I felt a conflict. I felt so much energy. I felt like I could literally have lifted a car and threw it. And so I had this extreme amount of energy, and in one hand, I felt really good. And then on one hand, I felt really bad. The bad was, this isn't my job. This isn't my purpose. Wow. What are you doing? The other hand, so probably mentally I felt bad. Physically,
you felt good, but it was like, what is happening right now?
Exactly.
Why am I running?
Your physical body
this?
feels like at home in this scenario, but your mind is saying,
my mind
this
was like,
job doesn't belong to me.
What the fuck are you doing? So I kind of stood there. I remember hearing, which is interesting because, again, as a breacher, I was also responsible for what's called a broco torch, which would be thermo called well, it doesn't matter, but it's a torch that burns at like 5,000 degrees. I can't think of the stuff. And then a quickie saw, which is you've seen them cut. It's basically a radial saw that breaches doors, and fire departments use it. So does the military. So, anyways, I hear the quickie saw start up. They start cutting into the building. And then that kind of made things worse because
triggered you?
Yeah, that was just like, oh shit, fucking quickie saw. And then I just was like, I gotta get the fuck out of here. Then I felt really weird. I walked back to my truck. I got in. I drove, I don't know, 5 minutes down the road. I don't remember. And pulled into just some random, I think it was actually a liquor store parking lot. I just pulled off I couldn't continue to drive. I just was like, what the fuck was that? What just happened? So I pulled off, and I sat there till the sun came up. I'm assuming it was 2.5 hours. Again, I don't actually know, but it was a while. It was a while. And Lauren knows, once something happens or when my brain wants to process something, I will literally just sit there and just think about all the stuff until my brain, I don't have to figure it out, but I have to come to some kind of a theory.
But you knew something wasn't right.
I knew I needed a way to logically explain what just happened, because it was the first time where I went, that was weird. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
In my head, I'm like, that's not normal. That's not normal behavior. And that's a critical point I should say too. When it happened, when I stopped, I was like, what was that? That is not a normal person's behavior. So then I was like, well, I have to explain to myself why I did that. And I just sat there and I came up with, I had to recognize that was the best I had felt in a long, long time. Physically, I felt amazing. Mentally, I felt this intense amount of shame. And probably lack of
Like confusion and all of that.
I'll say it differently because I just realized how to say this. I felt this intense feeling of I should be doing that.
Oh,
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, that's what I'm good at. Why am I not a part of that team? Like, they could have used me. I could have helped. Like, that's what I'm built for. Why am I not doing that?
But also you said shame there too, which is interesting. So there's this dichotomy of I just felt so in my purpose and I felt so good, mixed with what's wrong with me?
Yeah.
Why
absolutely
does
true.
this feel so good?
Yeah.
What is going on? And that's where that shame piece comes in, which is I think is so interesting. And I'm curious how this continued to unravel more and more, where you really realize, like, I think I have an addiction to chaos, because I know there's a lot of people who listen to this, whether they are warriors or whether they are entrepreneurs. We see this a ton in the entrepreneurial space. I think it's the exact same thing you're talking about with warriors
It is.
who step into
Most high
that.
achievers.
Most entrepreneurs step into entrepreneurship for very similar reasons. They're addicted to chaos. And I've heard some of them. I know one person in particular who said, I love chaos.
Yeah.
And he's an entrepreneur. And so it's very, very common.
You love chaos if you were built in it.
Oh, it's a good line.
And it's the easiest way to say it. Well, thank you. You're a writer.
We
If
should write
you-
that down.
If you were,
we should write that
if
down.
if you were forged in chaos,
Ooh,
then
forged
you love
in chaos. Make the icon.